Okay, well, of the 20 minutes to talk about fintech, AI, and the future of financial services, I've just wasted the past couple of them, so I'll have to move on a little more quickly than planned. Those are three quite big topics, and I'll have to necessarily cover them fairly superficially. A few words about myself. I've been in the technology industry and financial services for over 30 years, most recently as a worldwide executive focusing on data and analytics. And my current day job is really as an author, mentor, and advisory board member. And you'll see along the bottom my 3 books on financial services, analytics for insurance, advanced analytics and AI in the future of banking, one of which has been translated for the Chinese market, which was very satisfying. Over the next 15-20 minutes, we'll talk about really 3 things: the complexity and consistency of the financial services sector. We'll talk a little about recognizing the AI mountain and the hierarchy of analytics. And finally, just a few words about personal preparation and about what all this means to you and me as individuals. But firstly, just a few words about the complexity of financial services. Because like many industries, we tend to give topics a wrapper, and financial services is of course one of those. But financial services fundamentally comprises the insurance industry, the wealth management industry, and the banking industry. And within each of those sectors, you will see there are subsectors. For example, in banking, we are familiar with the retail sector, but also there's commercial banking, private banking specialist, investment, and central banking. And in many of those particular sectors, there are subsectors: credit unions, mortgage banking, saving banking, agriculture. So it really feels like a very complex area for any fintech or any organization to be addressing. But the good news is that there is consistency across the entire financial services sector. The reality is that there are principally 3 key imperatives which apply to every single component within financial services. The first is the one of using technology and new processes to improve operational efficiency, to do things more quickly and more cheaply. The second is that of customer service excellence. How do we improve the customer experience, both in terms of quality and also in terms of product offering? And the third is that of risk management. Not only the alignment of risk decisions to the strategy of a bank or insurance company, but also how assets are managed, particularly in troublesome times like this. And some might argue that there is a 4th imperative for banks and financial services, the imperative of survival. But the reality is that survival will be obtained by the effective implementation of one of these 3 key imperatives, or maybe a combination of all 3 simultaneously. So the future of fintech requires, in fact, demands a focused approach. As a mentor, I often get approached by technology companies saying, I have this brilliant technology. How best can I apply it? What sector will it apply to? What is the imperative it applies to? Which is the equivalent, really, of almost throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that some of it will stick. But of course, a stretch and fit approach to technology can also work, especially where solutions pan across multiple industries. For example, the payments issue will align itself to transportation, to banking, to retail, to many different areas. So therefore, a payment solution will have application to different marketplaces. I wanted to spend a moment also talking about the hierarchy of analytics and AI. And we consider there being really 4 levels of analytics and advanced analytics. The lowest one, the analytics of description, which effectively tells us where we are and why do we have the results we've got. The second is the analytics of prediction, being able to identify what is likely to happen next. The third is the issue of prescription. What are the rules that we can apply to the data we have to start building workflows. And the fourth, the peak of the analytics hierarchy, is that of cognitive analytics and AI. And of course, many organizations talk about having AI capability, when in fact they're just really moving around the predictive, prescriptive area. One of the big challenges really is, can organizations move directly into a cognitive/AI strategy without going through the maturity curve? And of course, descriptive analytics at its most basic level helps organizations understand the return on investment that they are obtaining from AI, and therefore helps justify additional funds being committed. So therefore, even at the very top level, we can split between cognitive and AI. Cognitive computing, cognitive analytics supports the individual decision. Artificial intelligence completely replaces the individual. Adopting the Turing test, the customer would not know whether they were dealing with a system or a person. And of course, the purist would say even AI can be subdivided into hard AI and soft AI. But what does this all mean for us, for individuals in the workplace, but also for developers? And the legal guy, Robert Cannon, posed the question, what can a human contribute to work in financial services? And his answer was, if a job is one where that question cannot be answered positively, then that job is likely to cease to exist. So we need to think a little about what the financial services will look like in the future. We think in terms of it being called Financial Services 4.0, representing the fact that we are going through the fourth industrial revolution. And it's kind of fun to think that the earlier industrial revolutions were very much started in the north of England. And therefore, what's happening with AITN really kind of reflects an echo of the past. And it's one of the reasons why I'm very keen to support this initiative. So, of course, the changing nature of financial services recognizes, for example, a move to digital money. The reality that money is no longer coins and notes, but rather has become data. That products and services will become digitalized. That the management of customers will also become digitalized. And that all of those will have robotic advice. And then, of course, build in issues such as blockchain, cloud, crypto, Internet of Things, fraud, location analytics. And you'll see that by envisaging the future of financial services, then startups and fintech can start to understand how they fit into the equation. And to further expand on this, an example from one of the research companies which I look at quite regularly, CB Insight, talked in terms of their top 250 fintech companies having multiple points of entry. So therefore, it's not just around understanding what the components of the future of fintech look like, but what the individual building blocks of that may be. Payment processing, for example, payroll and benefit, asset management, cyber and IT resilience. So the reality is that there are so many areas to look at and so many areas to make progress in. So many things to be and do. So much to look forward to. And of course, we can start thinking about what some of these future scenarios would look like. Our colleagues from HSBC told us a little about the conversational bank, which in effect removes human interaction from conversations. And of course, we see the possibility of the collaborative bank with a much more extended ecosystem, or perhaps a disaggregated bank, outsourcing all its non-core activities, and the full service bank and the digital bank. And the reality is that the bank of the future may be a combination of all those acting in parallel, or maybe something quite different. On the left-hand side of this screen, you'll see a couple of images of what people think the retail bank of the future may look like. Robotic, digital, or maybe even at the bottom, the cafe bank, which, when social distancing allows, integrates our social need with our financial need. What does the insurer of the future look like? An insurer which is no longer reactive, but rather one which is proactive around the management of events. An organization which is driven by algorithmics, perhaps entirely automated. One which is hyper-connected to our cars of the future. Ones where personalization drives precision underwriting rather than a broad brush approach. And one which through multiple distribution streams allows new entrants to come into the market much more easily. And the investment bank of the future, the wealth management of the future, digitalized, de-risked, disintermediated. Companies such as Wealthify, for example. Companies where they remove the need for the investment analyst, the person sitting in front of you, and replacing that with robotic assistance. Investment which is hyper-customized, working through new business models and through better research and using alternative offerings. But for all these, the elephant in the corner is always the matter of implementation. We can all have great ideas, we can all have great technology, but how do we bring it into operation? Do we innovate? Do our clients innovate? Or do they simply adapt existing process? Ladies and gentlemen, the future is not about digitalizing existing processes. It is about creating entirely new ones. And of course, there will be invariably blockages to change. Many of the companies I work with, the startups I work with, say, why is the insurance industry full of gatekeepers? Why is it so hard to make progress? And the interesting thing when you take a global view is that the Far East, for example, have much shorter chains of command and are therefore able to make progress much more quickly. And when we think in terms of pilot schemes, in the UK, we might think that having 20,000 people on a pilot is quite a big deal. In China, they think in terms of 20,000 people per day. So that is one of the key differences between what is happening in the Western market and the Asian market. I wanted also to mention to you the new UK Fintech Pledge, which is an arrangement drafted with 5 key points which will help startups work in the banking sector, of which HSBC and Santander and Barclays and others are all signatories. So I would recommend and commend you have a look at that. But if you think you might be maybe missing the boat, get ready for quantum. It was mentioned earlier on the IBM speakers session, where quantum will provide step change improvement in data analytics and AI. It will increase speed. It will reduce cost. It will help run algorithms which are not currently possible using current classical systems. And is it a thing of the future? Well, the first commercial applications are said to be available in 3 to 5 years. Ladies and gentlemen, that is just around the corner. So the goalposts may completely move in terms of what we're doing in the world of AI and advanced analytics. But what about us? What about us and you as individuals? How will we cope? Is your glass half empty? Are you concerned? Or is it half full? Are you hopeful? The reality is that the future demands, not invites us to, but demands us to develop new competencies and to maintain them. We need to keep informed, to network, to discuss, to contribute, and to fundamentally operate outside our comfort zone. Because all the things we've learned in the past and all the experiences which our leaders have had in the past really won't be relevant in this world of the future. And therefore, fundamentally, it will be about personal reinvention. And the fact that you're listening to this event today is part of that personal reinvention journey. So really, just in conclusion, it's important you know and understand your market and how your technical capabilities meet the key imperatives. It's important that you understand how those capabilities become part of the future, an uncertain future. But you have to become part of the future and not a victim of the future. And finally, you have to prepare yourself personally. You have to be prepared to reinvent yourself. So with those closing thoughts, I'd like to say thank you. I'd like to say thank you to the organizers for inviting me. You'll see there are multiple ways of reaching out to me, either through the AITN site or directly, and please feel free to get in contact. Thank you.